I guess.
Good morning, Tony Caravan.
You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you don't.
Tape deck alert. Tape deck alert.
Here's what's happening.
Okay.
Oh, no.
Kind of got the thing out of whack. I'm back to slurping coffee. By the way, today through Wednesday, so that's actually yesterday through Wednesday, but today and tomorrow, you can get 15% off of ROCKFLUX mug, morning show mug, game over hat, way over there. Any of our shirts or hoodies, you name it. 15% off. You know, and some of the shirts are only like $18 to begin with. Great gifts, but great shirts, and hoodies are great for this weather because it's cold outside. In any event, I had a weird thing starting the show before I get totally into it. I couldn't put up what I call the title cards, you know, these things, which you would have seen to come here. They call them the thumbnail. Well, it's hardly a thumbnail to me. But we'll get into that later. But later, the specific why that card and everything. But it said it needed more information, like it needed my phone number and an alternative email address and stuff. Well, what would they need that for a thumbnail? It said you've exceeded your whatever and then this thing came up, and then I had to do this, and then I did that, and then I was able to update a custom thumbnail. And there's these people. There was some guy who replied, some reply that's made it over the internet on a couple of YouTube sites about where I replied about how my videos have been post-dated so that they don't appear in the live feed, you know, so that with the hundreds of millions of viewers around the world, just randomly by the law of probability and statistics, you would expect somebody from, like, you know, where the waking world is right now. It's 4:27 a.m. Eastern time, but over in Europe or somewhere, you know, India or someplace, but where there's hundreds of millions of people on YouTube, and there's this live thing, you know, that they get, then randomly people would just click on it and say, oh, I wonder what that's about. Wonder what that's about. And, you know, click on and off or something like that, you know, and say, well, that guy looks goofy, to heck with it. That's fine. But that doesn't happen. And then what happened was a friend of mine had screen captured on 2 different occasions. I don't know if this happens every day or not, but on 2 different occasions, he sent me screen captures. And, you know, we'll get into the show in a second, but, you know, I might as well, let's see, daily, what was this? That was a CIA thing from yesterday. So I'm going to change that out. I think I still have the screen capture here. Let me see if I do. Screenshot. Yeah, I do. And so he sent me a screenshot from his phone for this particular show, and streamed 1 day ago came up. However, this was on 11/11/21. It was actually the day. That was the show. That was, you know, I was wearing the dashiki. And yet he had the URL, so he was able to go there and look for the show. But it said streamed 1 day ago. So it obviously something that was streamed a day ago wouldn't appear in the live. And we had a discussion, you know, on YouTube about this on a on another site. And I just noticed I had a comment today where somebody was like, yeah, bro, or something. I don't know if he was being negative or positive, but I replied to him. I said, hey, man, you go test it this morning, if you don't believe me. I mean, that's the game. Anyway, we'll get into that later because all this stuff comes down to the same thing. It's like, here's today's news. It's a nothing burger. Now, in this instance, this was something I used to do. I used to be a creative director of an advertising agency. And so I had a lot of clients. And so sometimes I would, on our website or with people, I would, give them tips. And this was the anatomy. I used to represent a lot of restaurants. And this was the anatomy of a food ad was show the product in all its glory. Because I used to get these people, and they would want to. Actually, it was when I was publishing a magazine, too, because I had the agency, but we published a dining and entertainment magazine. And I would get restaurants, and they would submit copy that would just be this laundry list. Or they'd say, put, like all these things, right? And I'm saying, you understand this is an ad. You've got people have the attention span of a goldfish. You have literally seconds before they turn the page, right, or flip the channel, in whatever case may be. And so, what you want to do is you have to draw their attention. And if your specialty is something like burgers, or this kind of thing, you want to show this juicy, greasy, cheesy burger, because that's going to freeze them. And instead of the copy I have up there, show the product in full glory, that should be your logo, or Tuesday burger night, or some kind, or whatever your special is, or just something about your burgers, the best burgers and whatever, the freshest meat, blah blah blah. Anyway, that's what that is. And there's a little free advice if there happens to be some restaurateur watching this. It's like, because I still see it to this day with people. They'll put a menu in ad in, which is fine. It has a full menu if it were a full page ad in a city newspaper. But when you're advertising and people only have a short time to decide to stop on that page or stop on that or pay attention to this commercial or whatever it is or not, you have to have something that's going to grab them. And not only grab them, now I'm going to give you the kicker, is that then it's not enough to grab their attention, but what one of the more or less secrets of the industry, advertising industry, is there has to be a call to action. And a lot of people have these ads that they'll even go to the point where they'll stop somebody will stop and go but then there's no call to action. There's no thing saying hey, Friday night burgers and such, you've got to have some reason, you've got to you've caught their attention, but now there's got to be some call to action. Otherwise, the ad fails. Okay, but the news isn't about, the news is about ads, because that's all, remember, everything you see on the news isn't about the content. The content is filler in between the ads. But today's news was a nothing burger. And it turns out that, and like I say, I'm the first one. I followed up yesterday on the Omicron thing, because as soon as I saw the South African doctor who discovered the variant came out and said that there are mild symptoms with this, and that we, then finally now at least, whoever that guy is, the puppet in chief, has basically said, I think he's backed off a little bit, but many people haven't, because there's this move to just, let's do a lockdown again. And certainly the billionaire class wants it because, look at, made Jeff Bezos the richest man in the world. I mean, the concept of a guy who is in the hundreds of billions of dollars. The man is not a corporation unless he incorporated himself. But I mean, a single individual whose net worth, is over $100 billion. It's crazy. But anyway, the rest of the news was a nothing burger too. We could thank Madam President, right? What was it? The cover of Newsweek or whatever it was. I have a copy of it somewhere. We could thank Madam President for that phrase, nothing burger. But yeah, that's the news. So today we're not going to even bother looking at anything like that. So in the meantime, let's just.
The Weather Watch forecast.
And let's take a look. As you can see, the south is clear as a southern belle, and up north, it's kind of typical this time of year. I mean, it's cold outside. In the mid-Atlantic states, like today where I am, it's an 80% chance of snow. The temperature right now is 30 degrees. It's going to, at sunrise, be only right around freezing or 0 degrees Celsius. And the high will be 37. The low will be 30 or below 0 Celsius tonight. Now, the next 2 days, there's a chance of it's going to be cloudy. And Thursday, they're talking about a chance of thunderstorms. So the temperature might actually get close to the high 40s. But the overnights stay in the 30s, and then it looks like towards the weekend, the overnight Saturday night is going to go down to 27. So that's the mid-Atlantic states, which is that swath in the mid-Atlantic. And in the Pacific Northwest, like I say, this is typical. Right now, what we're seeing is pretty much typical weather for this kind of year. And like I say, there's no doubt some lake effect snow happening. And otherwise, it's in the north, it's going to be a gray day probably. The sun might break through a moment or two. But pretty much all along the south, you're going to have clear skies. And you've got a clear night tonight. So it's clear and cold where it would be expected to be. But you see that big, crazy cloud out in the Atlantic that's kind of like wants to curl back towards, but it's being driven north. That's interesting. Well, that's the Atlantic conveyor, kind of, in a sense. That's not it, because it's basically water. The Atlantic conveyor is what happens with the ocean. But I mean, that's the kind of thing where there's a southerly push of warmer air, it's usually warmer water, which brings warmer air to latitudes that normally should be colder than they are. It's an interesting observation, but I mean, there's very thick clouds out there. I wouldn't want to be like under that with a boat right now. Anyway, that's your.
The Weather Watch forecast.
And we're back live. We're got the candle lit. We're still in Hanukkah. I don't have a menorah or anything around because, like I said yesterday, I burned that set down. That's all paper wrapping and all kinds of craziness going on here. This is an insane theater, like the line in a Jim Morrison song, this insane theater. But I'm back to drinking coffee, and I put some vanilla roast in with my 100% Colombian. And I'm pouring with the carafe right now. Add some more hot. This is my first cup of coffee post, the tooth thing. Yeah, yeah. Crazy. Kind of what he does. The only difference is the guy wears a full face mask, But here, that's pretty much what they're doing to you down at the bottom. I'll tell you. I don't care. That kind of stuff doesn't bother me. It really doesn't. I mean, I just deal with it. I deal with it. For those following Bitcoin, since we've been doing this now for, I don't know, almost a month, you can see that it's kind of in a holding pattern. It's up and down, up and down, up and down. Like the stock market, there's two things I want to point out on this chart that have nothing to do with Bitcoin. One is on Friday, at some point, the market dropped like 900 points or something like that, right? And they were talking about like a crash or something like that. But you understand that it's all relative to the price. In other words, what the value is. So if a market's at like the stock market's at 34 and it loses 1,000, okay? I mean, let's just make it really easy to do mental math instead of, having to do, MIT math in your head. If the market were 10,000, for example, and it lost 1,000 points, that would be a drop of 10%. All right. If the market were 10,000 and it lost 100 points, it would be a drop of 1%. Okay. Now, in other words, they fail to take the people reporting markets when the stock market goes down, and likewise, if it's 30,000, okay, and we're over 30,000, it's like 34,000. All right, we're talking about the stock market now, Dow Jones Industrial Average right now is over 30. It's 34. But let's just say, round number, say 30,000. Okay, so if it loses 300 points, that's only 1%. All right? And if it loses 900, it would have to lose 3,000 points to drop 10%. You understand that? So if the market drops several hundred or even up to 1,000, which in this case it was under 1,000. It was like nine something. What I'm saying is that it's all relative to the volume of the trades and the value of the overall market. All right. Now, I don't profess to be some great market guru and trader, but this is basic, economics. And yet you turn on Bloomberg or CNBC or one of these business channels, and I get it through my I have one of those Echo Dot things, so I can say, play Bloomberg News or something. If I just want to catch up on financial, I'm not interested in the hogwash, and I'm not interested in the nothing burger news, But sometimes I like to know, okay, because remember, it's all about the money. Follow the money, right? That's the key to everything. And so these announcers who you would think would have an understanding of economics 101, they're like all dramatic, like, oh, the market dropped, that's a crash. I go, it's not a crash. A 1% drop, a 2% drop, a 5%. Yeah, unless this is, happening every day, it's not that big a deal. And it's not even a one, it would have to be 340 point drop would be 1%. 340 points. But if the market's down 340, these people have like these panic faces. 640 would only be like 2%. Right? And so like, and so, so it's substantial. I mean, people lose a couple points, but that's the game. But a couple of points is not a big deal. You would expect those types of fluctuations. And when the market used to be like in the 90s, the market was like 5,000, right? So if the market lost 100 points, like 500 points would be 10%, would be a 10% drop. Whereas 500 right now would be like 1.75% drop. You understand? But these people don't seem to have made that correlation. They're still thinking in terms of 1990s. And I guess some of the old timers are thinking in terms of 1980s when the market was only like in several thousand. So they're thinking, oh my God, 300. If the market was, when the Dow was at 3,000, right? Well, yeah, if it dropped 300, that's 10%. So that's substantial loss. All right. But when it's at 34,300 is like 1%. And you would expect 1 and 2%, fluctuations here and there. So, it's just interesting to, it's not even interesting. It's kind of like, it gets into today's topic, and today's topic is wokeism is old school jealousy. And I don't know if me typing that in was the reason why they messed with me trying to put a custom icon, thumbnail as they call it. I call it a title card. But yeah, that was weird. But the same with Bitcoin. So, at $57,000, a $653 loss, as you could see right under it here, it spells it out for you plain as day. It was just a 1.1% drop. So, it's, just something to consider. However, Bitcoin has been just kind of fluctuating in that within a range of like I say, the high was we were in 66 a couple of weeks ago, and, we're still almost down 10,000 points. $10,000. That's a little bit different than the market, because remember, unless you're playing the market per se, there's individual stocks within the stock market. So, in some cases, your stock may well have gone up, and you may well have stocks that pay dividends, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, that's that. So, yeah, here's Bitcoin today. It's at 57. But the other thing I wanted to point out, and I haven't always put this in when I copy, basically I do a screen capture of this. This is literally from 10, 15, whatever, how long I've been on the air. 23 minutes ago is when I snapped this. So that's how accurate it is. The time there is UTC, Universal Time. So, but if you look at the very top, you can see that it says about 246 million results. All right. Then in parentheses in 0.61 seconds. Now, this is why Google is becoming irrelevant and almost useless in many cases. Google search. First, that and this is a generalization, because there are certain things you search for that, it functions fine. And they do come up. But I mean, if for real search, see, I created a thing one time, and I talked about this before, that basically I had categories of the most common things, the categories that people would search for. So this would be like, say, under finance and markets or something, right? Or money and markets. And so you would click on that, and then there would be a whole list of things, that you could touch on your phone. That would be Bitcoin, I actually had cryptocurrency. This is hard to believe, but this is like right in the beginning. I had a whole page for cryptocurrency. All right. And, this is why Google demonetized me, because I created a better search. And I created a better search for the smartphone because I realized that most people were looking for specific things, categories of things. And you would want to go. Now, my search is completely outdated. I hesitate doing this. Let me see. Okay, guess I'm going to do this. I'm going to show you, since I have such low viewership, I'm going to show you a better way to search. And if someone wants to partner with me on this, join the club. All right, just let me know. Now, what you see on the screen, obviously, would fit on your smartphone, and very simple, not in your face. There's an Amazon ad in the top. Okay, so you don't have to pay attention to that or not. I gave up this URL because it started out. It's the reason I called it Blarchive. It was an archive of blogs because when blogging was big. But then I started to convert it. So, for example, I have Bitcoin, etc. All right, this is from many years ago, by the way. Let's look at the copyright. Let's look at the copyright there, MMXVI. Okay, that's 2016, right? Yeah. So this is 5 years, at least last updated 5 years ago. But so, what are you searching for on the internet? Think at any given time. So say you're looking for Bitcoin. So here I tell you exactly this because at that time no one knew what the heck it was. So what is digital currency? I explain it, and then I give you a link to all of the various Bitcoins, Litecoin, Peercoin, Dogecoin. These were all the coins around that time that were out there, right? And then different places. And then a little ad here, 12 questions about Bitcoin, iMoney, rumored Apple digital currency, let's talk Bitcoin. And I even had you could donate to me with Bitcoin. And on each one, you could suggest a blog or a website, or you could return. And say you wanted to listen to music, and this is, you can see I still have AOL music on there. This is older. But these were like the music stations that people were listening to at the time, right? Where you could actually listen to music. And then I had just like all this other, all this other extra music thing. And then bands we would add because people would suggest them, right? And that was when the Beatles first came out with their things. So there was that would be an ad to the Beatles album, right? Radio. People wanted to listen to online radio. Look how old it is. Again, Yahoo Music. All this will have changed because this is old, but you understand how good this was, right? And so people wanted to know TV and video. And here you can see some familiars, but obviously this would change now. This is before even Netflix, I believe. So you've got Hulu there and Xfinity and Crackle and, all these various sites. Remember this girl, Geek Beat, Callie Lewis? What was her stage name? But I had a correspondence with her once. And this is how it should work. And of course, tattoos were very big. I mean, some people would argue tattoos are still big, but, information on tattoos. Philosophy. And see, for example, existential primer, introduction to existentialism and its major figures. And then, so if you wanted to go look at Kierkegaard, you could click here. You see, and I had an instant link right off of this page to that, right? And I'll show you some other interesting things, that we did. So if you were into news and views. So these would be the news station. I tried to say non-political, so it's everybody's listed here. But like Huffington Post would be listed, but if you want, because that's considered a liberal, if you want to see more liberal media, you go here, and then suddenly here's all the liberal, major liberal media. And then, without icons. And you even have like Hot Bologna was me. That's my mug there, me with a beard and stuff. And so, and at any given time, you could go back. Actually, at any given time, you could go back to the top or back to the. Oh wait, no, I didn't want to do that. See, I just gave up the site. Now somebody's selling it for $1,500. The heck with them. Archive no longer applied because these aren't blogs, So you just go. I have a few URLs, but like SciTech, same deal. Now this is so. Think about yourself. People were into dating apps and stuff, right? Right. Sports was really good. So here was major, and whatever the season was, I would have up at the very top. So like, in this instance, so you would have the standings. Now, I don't know if these are still active but yeah, they are. So there's the NFL standings right now. So I know some people still use this because I have a private link to this site. You see how cool this is? Way better than Google. Because this is what you'd be looking for. All you have to do is come down and go, I'm interested in sports. So it's the like I say at the top, the web at your fingertips. All right. So you go, what am I into right now? So college football rankings. All right. And there they are. Do you see what I mean? So you merely clicked on sports and clicked on college football rankings and you got them. You don't have to jump through hoops. You don't have to have you don't have to have 1,000 bookmarks. See, some people used to say, well, you could just bookmark a lot of this stuff. I don't know if you're like me. How long have your bookmarks got? Even if you have like them all categorized across, you still have to scroll way down. And what I would do is like when it was football season, this would be, the overlap of like the World Series, right? Overlaps football. So in this instance, and I guess I don't know if this page is anything, but what would have happened is this particular thing here would have been moved down to the bottom because then NFL and college football would have been at the top, and NHL would have always still been up there because hockey will last for practically ever. But the same thing. If you were a NASCAR person, you go right to NASCAR. So it was basically everything at your fingertips. And then there were all these fan blogs and all these other things that people are into. But I covered everything from equestrian to golf, the Olympics, March Madness, NBA, sports. You see what I mean? I mean, even like on under Sportsline, this was super, click here for Super Bowl ads, right? I don't know if that's still on archive, but it looks like it is. Yeah, welcome to the Super Bowl archive. And Google, you'd have to like go jump through hoops to get that direct. The recession was going on, I guess, around this time. And this was an idea of how to save money and, shortcuts and all that kind of stuff. And get a job. And then I had just interesting people, right, at the time. Right? Elizabeth Banks, man, is she a doll? I wonder if she still has an official website. Yeah. She's a producer. She produces a lot now. But anyway, Jack Black. But you can see how I've gone, at this time I was leaning a little bit left. I would say a lot left. But look at all this stuff. I mean, I even got people, Anderson Cooper, for crying out loud. right? But anyway, games and fun. I mean, it just goes the whole 9 yards. And so you decide what people are into. So if it's, you're into business, and this would be the same idea. So I just wanted to bring that up. It's a pretty interesting idea. It was a concept that was good, and it was Google's excuse for basically demonetizing me, because I was on YouTube. I was one of the first guys on YouTube, and they wouldn't allow me to. At that point, you didn't need 1,000 followers to get AdSense. Even though on some of one of my other allied accounts, I frequently would get in the thousands at a time when people were to get thousands of views and stuff was this is at the very beginning. And they tried to claim that site was some kind of, that I was violating something. They weren't going to allow me to be monetized on YouTube or through Google AdSense, because that site, and they knew this was an outright lie. They said that site was like pay to play or something like that. But what they really feared was that they couldn't copy it because it was copyrighted by me. All right? It's very old. It was before them. You see, I've been on the internet before, from the days of Yahoo, the early days when Yahoo search. And in fact, that site we just looked at was an improvement on what Yahoo was. But Yahoo was kind of categorized and stuff like that. But I wanted to take it a step further, and I made it work for it literally fit in your hand on your smartphone. But you could use it on a desktop, obviously. I just did. Now, there'd just be white space on the outside, but you'd still be going to bigger pages in some cases. But in a lot of cases, most people have a thing that, and you're familiar with this, it automatically detects your browser, whether you're on a smartphone, tablet, or a desktop, and you will get the page that, fits on that device. So because I was on a laptop, some of those sites we went to were big. But if we would have looked at the NFL standings, we would have gotten the mobile version, some JavaScript or something like that would have automatically detected that we were on a smartphone instead of a desktop. But it knew it was a desktop, and we saw it big in our face. So what good are 246 million results at the top of this Bitcoin thing? Right? It's like when I'm searching for, any specific thing. And so, people think so their algorithm, their whole concept is useless. And in many cases, the first page is filled with paid to play. And sometimes you even get to the second and you hit these like about.coms and stuff like that. I know I'm on a rant here, but we got plenty of time. But you go to it and it's like, then it wants to send you to another spot, and it's like, and it's vague. Right? How many times have we done searches here? I've done with you, where we've gone, let's go to the search engine, and we've gone there, and we've seen, it's like, you just keep clicking and trying to find. All I want to know is how many people are blah blah blah, or what's the, such and such, right? What's the, the makeup of this, or what, and it's like you're on this like crazy hunt, but you get hundreds of millions of results, it says. Well, it's humanly impossible. You can't go through 246 million pages or results. I mean, divided by, I don't know how many, 10 per page, how many per page or whatever, 24 million pages. or even, even 2 million pages. Right? But the point of the matter is, to you people who criticize me and say, well, I found you today and I'm listening to your show. I don't know why, because you're a dickhead. But the point is, and I'm saying, yeah, well, they put me way in the back. I used to search for, like, when I first started I've written over 50 songs, all right? And they're all registered with BMI. They're royalty, so I deserve to get royalties. And YouTube could make money off of my music. But they do the same with that because it's associated with me, right? The Blarchive guy, the guy who created a better search engine that they basically stamped out. And I did not have the money to go up against a multi-billion-dollar company, trillion-dollar company like Alphabet and sue them. You see what I mean? Is what I should have done. But I couldn't do that, I don't, the type of lawyers you need to go up against Google, and then they play that game, those big companies, where if they're even threatened, even if you have a decent lawyer, if you're able to come up with, money to get some kind of lawyer, they play those games where they just delay and, they like basically make it so that they wear you out. They either like, you run out of money, or they just, keep putting these delays in until even, so it's a game. That's how the power elite rule. And so I'm an example of somebody who was stamped out, who came up with a better search engine, right? A better search, call it. All right. Because I was going to add some more interactive stuff to that, but I needed the thing to, yeah. And I was getting like 100,000, unique views and stuff a month and stuff. It was starting to build. I mean, it was about 1 million people a year were uniques, they used to call them in those days. So, I mean, it was growing. And I think that's when someone there who probably no longer even works at Alphabet, this is so long ago. Right? The original, when that began and when they screwed me over, this is like maybe 15 years ago or something, or longer. And because I think I saw my original Adverteria site, because that was the agency, which I closed that down too. That was that 2006? Or something like that. So yeah, that's like 15 years ago. I think that was on there. I saw a date on something. I was looking because I was noticing. I wanted to see that, I was looking at some of my older videos from that. And that's associated with this, but not, that's through me, association, not through you necessarily. You would have to go look at that separately and subscribe separately. And I don't update that, really. That just has some of my old exploration stuff on it. But a lot of those videos were getting in, multiple thousand hits, 15 years ago. Right. But that's, and it really bothered me after the fact was not so much that they screwed me over, because I've been screwed over a lot. People who come up with creative ideas, or like they say outside the box thinking, in your own time, or at the time when you come up with it, usually most people look at you like just blurry-eyed and like they don't understand. But see, like I say, that site was featured on Apple's. Steve Jobs put that on Apple's website, and it was the featured mobile website on Apple's website. And I had another one. I had 2 or 3 other ones that he featured when he was still alive, and when the iPod first came out. And he was when before and during the transition from HTML type of people who were creating sites because that was specifically, creating sites for the smartphone, and then transitioning into apps. And then I became an Apple developer, and then I developed some apps for people as well. But the point was, I was a very busy man. I was a creative director. I was publishing. I was always doing a lot of things. I was designing stuff, Like I said, I've written 10 books. I've written 50 songs, So, as much as, going after suing Google, I'm like, so what? I had 60 projects going on at the time. And I believed in that one, and me and the people I knew and all the people around me and as many people who discovered it used it. And to this day, because of the nature of how I had it set up, there are people who have that site bookmarked. But I just haven't updated it in several years. But it's, as you can see, a lot of it still functions fine. But a lot of those blogs no longer exist. A lot of those people probably no longer have websites. Some of those companies have gone out of business. But why would I do it? Because I have no, But so that's the game they play. That's what these guys play. They mess around and they sue people for copyrights. It's just a game. It's all a big game. But yeah, whenever I see search 246, you don't need that. I just want to know, human beings have categories. Like I've said this before. It's like car keys. At one point there were like 16 car keys to like Chevys or something like that. I mean, I might not have that number exactly right, but it was like a set amount of car keys. And there was so if you went to a big mall parking lot, there was a remote possibility there, there was like some probability in statistics that you conceivably could open another Chevy of the same, with your key. But what I'm trying to say is humans are the same way. If you really think about it, how many different types of humans are there? And this is getting in today's topic, which is this idea of this wokism is old school jealousy. All right? And, how many different people are there, kinds of people are there? And I don't have any lists or anything. This is a flow of all my shows are flow of consciousness, really, even when I don't mention it as that. But the types. We're types, and we like to think we're not. We're all unique, and we all have the potential to change as well, which I often say, and that's what I write about in my book. I write about in my book, Then What? I believe it's in Codex here, which is hard to see. There's so much red back there. But it's the idea that, you can change anytime you want to. And I've often used the expression, the example is like when you're in grade school or high school and, over the summer vacation, you try, you sometimes you want to people reinvent themselves. And you know what I'm talking about, And so when you go back in September, you're like, you kind of reinvented yourself over the summer. And then maybe people didn't accept it, and these people who were jealous or bullies or whatever, they kind of knock you down, or they kind of, just treated you in a way that, that was abusive in a sense. And so you weren't, they denied you your right, or not so much a right, but I mean, they denied you your identity. Right, to be, a different type of person, because at that age, that's when you start to develop your, like your persona, like at that age, you're discovering like, what do I want to be, what do I want to be like? You're looking for role models. Do you want to be, are you the type of person that wants to be like your parents or your uncle or like somebody you see or, James Bond, you know what I mean? Whatever. Or, some soldier or fireman, or or somebody, a character in a movie or TV show. You know what I mean? That a style, and people tend, rock a pop star. Yeah, and that at that age, that's what people do, and they kind of are trying to find out what they're already past the age of reason. Now it's a matter of like kind of coming up with their own identity personas per se. Some people just go through life and just be, But I know myself, I was like trying to be like Robert Wagner in It Takes a Thief. And like I talked about that show the other day, and it's just odd it comes up today. Like kind of a jet. I was always like wanted to be the jet setter kind of guy, not so much the James Bond spy, type of guy. But it turned out that I ended up, when I was very young, I ended up jet setting around the world and stuff like that, and living that kind of life for a while. And which ended me up, over both oceans and in living in Capitol Hill and being around power brokers, living in penthouses and living in Malibu and places like that. So in effect, I did become that character. But I don't know if I was necessarily accepted as that character in high school, you see. Or that maybe people even understood that I was trying to be that character. But it didn't matter. It's just an interesting thing to think about. But today, and so other people, and so the question is, why do people react to you in a certain way? And it's in those days it was called jealousy. And I recently heard someone say that in some, I don't know if a broadcast, some podcast or something I was watching yesterday, it might have even been. Someone referred to the word jealousy, that they said, oh, that's an old word. They don't use that anymore. I forget who it was. And I'm sorry for, not being able to. I watch since I don't watch cable TV, then I have no idea, of things become a blur. I watch so many clips on YouTube.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
So it's it's hard to keep track. But anyway, before we go further on this, let's finish another one of our daily features. The daily feature today, music-wise, is Steve Winwood's album "Ark of a Diver." All right. Now I don't know if you know Steve Winwood, if you know, then it's time to revisit Steve Winwood. In fact, I'm going to today, probably during lunch, I'm going to have my voice assistant play this album. The first two tracks on it, I think, are probably the best. While You See a Chance, Take It, right? It's just called While You See a Chance. And the other one is the title cut, Ark of a Diver, is like the second song, and that's a good song. There's also a song further down, Spanish Dancer. But this is an album that you can play the whole album. While it's not necessarily thematic, it's an album that you can play, and you will get to know it and the order of the songs, and it's something that, it's worth revisiting if you haven't heard Steve Winwood in, decades. And if you've never heard of Steve Winwood, he's a very talented songwriter, musician. He's been doing this stuff. He was in. I can't think. I'm drawing a blank, and I'm not gonna like clown around with this one. Let's just do this. Winwood was in Blind Faith with Eric Clapton in 1969. And I believe at that time, I think one of the songs was Can't Find My Way Home, which you might be familiar with that. But I I think he was also he might have been involved in the Spencer David. Yeah, he was Spencer Davis group too. And that was that song, Gimme Some Lovin'. All right. Think of that. So while, he's, and he was like 16 years old when he was in like Blind Faith or, Spencer Davis group. I mean, he started out as a kid. And those are some classic songs. Gimme Some Lovin'. And Can't Find My Way Home. That was a Blind Faith tune. That was a hit. And this album was definitely had hits. Ark of a Diver was played, and While You See a Chance was played on the radio, rock radio a lot. So just wanted to feature, I thought about him this morning. It just, and I thought, yeah, and that's an album I think I'm going to listen to myself today for lunch. And I'd recommend you listen to it. Like I say, either if you're old enough, revisit it. And if you aren't old enough to remember them, check it out. It's just discover something new. Steve Winwood, Ark of a Diver, guy who's been in the music business, like, some key bands that form, in the early days of rock, some classic rock bands with some classic musicians, like, Eric Clapton, Ginger Baker. Well, he was a crazy guy, but, I mean, he was with a lot of key players, and he was out there, and he continued to pull out stuff as a solo artist that was just, it's really good stuff, Check it out. I don't think we talked about La Palma yet. Yesterday, I just want to get through some of this stuff, and then we'll get back into the discussion and the theme. Yesterday, I mentioned that for 2 days, coming out of this is from the Spanish, I noticed this appeared at the top of the Google page. And I don't know if they're listening to me, if the algorithms, how that works or whatever, but this was actually at the top. I didn't have to go to the second page of search for it for once, right? So maybe they're on to it, But for the past 2 days, the official, and this is an official photo press release from the official Spanish government's site. So, like I say, I go to the source. Like I'm giving you when we looked at the Earth view, I'm showing you NOAA. This isn't from the Weather Channel. Okay, this is from NOAA. This is direct. This image was taken just a couple hours ago before I got on the air. So I like to bring things to you live, right? Same with like the Bitcoin. This is what Bitcoin was literally 10 minutes before I got on the air or less. So the same with this. Now, what we had said, and I had taken from the Spanish official press site over the past 2 days that I brought to you, was that one of the fissures had closed and it looked like things might have been slowing down. However, as of today, overnight, a new fissure has opened up. So, and it might be that thing you see in the distance in the back. I mean, this is a pretty crazy photo. Like I say, whoever the photographer is, and they're not crediting the guy or girl. It's just, it's just coming out of the government. It's weird. But, and this isn't a stock photo or anything weird. They're putting out like photos of the day, But whoever it is really artistic with this thing. I mean, again, like I said, one of the other ones, this would make a nice wall poster, right? Look at the glow and the clouds, it aren't really clouds. That's the ash that's going up. That's going to cool with all, in tandem with all the other volcanoes going off, is ultimately going to add to the cooling of the planet. But, you got the city lights, so you get civilization, people living their lives, celebrating the holidays, right? On the left side, and to the right, this earth erupting, right? cataclysmically, and that, and that outrageous, ominous glow on the ash clouds. That's an incredible photo. It really is. I don't know how much I can enlarge that full screen, just for the sake of it. Gets a little bit blurry when it gets big, but it's an outrageous photo. So anyway, according to the Spanish and the local government officials, that this new fissure has opened. So the past 2 days they were, giving us the feeling that this thing might be slowing down, but a new fissure opened up. So it doesn't look like there's, the end is in sight just yet. So, we can only hope that there's no more damage. I mean, several thousand homes have been totally destroyed, and there have been some deaths, and and just imagine the tragedy for those people. The government's is pledged to, deal with housing for the people who are displaced and stuff like that, but still, it's like a fire or anything else, and we've seen some of this in Hawaii, but not to this magnitude. The thousands of homes. So it's a real tragedy for all those people. But there you have it. That's the latest on La Palma. So La Palma is still active, and it slowed down a bit, but all it did was end up opening up another fissure. One went down, and another one popped up. I don't know. So let's hope for the best for those people there. Anyway, so like I said, the news is a nothing burger. You got your free advertising advice from a creative director there. And before, you got this interesting idea of how a better search that no one has ever come up with besides me. And I just put that out there. And it really, and everyone I've ever shown it to, has, and always said, oh, why don't you keep it up, man? You should update that. You should do it. And I'm saying, you don't understand. People have teams. And at the time it was me and a friend of mine, doing that. And that was it. And, you can't, it's the reason someone asked me why, I do YouTube videos as opposed to like yesterday I did and I'll probably might do one this morning, but maybe not. I don't know. But I also did a little live, really brief video yesterday on TonyCaravanLive.locals.com. I have the capability of doing a live video there as well. And, I like that site and stuff. But, Locals is an alternative, was originally designed as an alternative to, they've merged with, Rumble has bought them out now. But they were originally designed as an alternative to like Patreon. And so while I post copies of these videos on there, but now they have this live capability, which is nice. But the problem is I don't necessarily want to charge for my content. And I have it at the lowest amount. So I'm just trying to get people to even just subscribe to me. And if I would make it where it would be like you pay $1 a month or $2 a month, whatever their bare minimum is, that's what I have it set up as. But you don't have to. You can go and become a member of Locals for free, and then you can subscribe to my channel, and you can see my content for free. And, but the idea, what I was trying to get at is, the reason I'm on YouTube right now, and I don't know if YouTube's messing with me, that thing this morning with the thumbnail thing making me go jump through some hoops in order to put up a custom thumbnail title card, which I might as well put up now because we're into it. This is me yesterday, and you can see how bright, look at the room looks like with the daylight on. You can never see on the left-hand side, You know, you never see the Andy Warhol or the old Mac. That's the original Mac, by the way. Still turns on. It was, you know, I bought that originally and used it. And I was on the internet, the early internet, back in 1985 with that machine. And I had a printer, a dot matrix printer, and like a 300 baud. I don't even know I guess it was 300 baud modem, dial-up modem. And I was writing a movie script with someone in Australia at the time, and we were able to, communicate, over the internet. 1985, and I was using that machine. And my brother lived in a different town, hundreds of miles away from where I lived. I was living in Philly at the time, the main line, Philly, and the upper, that was the elite place. I had an apartment in Philly 35 years ago or something like that, and it was like close to $900 a month. Had a fireplace, a balcony, 2 bedrooms, washer and dryer, 2 baths, 2 bedrooms, and stuff like that. It was, separate, building. It had a gym, a health club and all that kind of stuff, I could take the train right into Center City, Philly, where I used to work in Center City, Philly. Down by the Liberty Bell, but on the other side. But anyway, yeah, my life, the stories I could tell. But yeah, that Mac, I was tied in. They were somehow tied into it was Western Union. I think it was like Western Union Easy Link or something it was called. And because it was owned by Western Union, I believe, and like I say, this is 35 years ago, right? Or close to that, approximately. Yeah, about 35, Yeah, it was there 35 years ago, exactly, I think. I was on the internet. But I used to also be able to send telegrams from that computer. So it was like a Western Union terminal. And then it would just be billed to my credit card. And that's how I used to send, because I was trying, that was when I was putting on the push to produce a couple of films. And so I would send telegrams to people and telexes. There used to be a thing, telex. I don't even know if they have telex anymore. That was another thing. And so you could get direct communications. And I think I was also able to fax from that. I'm actually 100% sure I was able to fax from that. But I had to use my modem. Like, there was at one point I had a machine, the next Mac up from that. When I was in radio, I had the station I went to. Okay, this was the station where I had to fire everybody. Like people say they hate general managers. Well, I went into this place and it was just a mess. And it was an oldies station, and people were just sitting around and they weren't doing anything. Half of the station, it was like they were on automated oldies, and there were 16 employees. The sales staff was doing the bare minimum. They were just hanging around all day, just talking. The office people were just, and I went in and systematically I ended up firing every single person who worked there. I hated to do that, but I mean every single person. And I gave them all a chance. I mean, it was like initially there were like 3 or 4 people that were just absolute, doing zero. They were just collecting a paycheck. So I'm like, get out, you're fired type of thing. And then one by one, I tried, I started signing, hey, do this, do that. Let's get this station moving. We're going to go from oldies to rock. I'm going to keep I'm going to put a golden oldies show on Sunday afternoon for, people who want to do that. still like the oldies. It's still rock and roll. We'll do some of that kind of stuff. We'll keep some, rock and roll oldies into the mix and stuff. But I'm going to go live during the days, and overnight I'm going to go Westwood One satellite overnight. I tried going live overnight, but I had these DJs overnight. And they were like falling asleep and they were useless. So I said, I'm sorry, but and I met the president of Westwood One at down in New Orleans at a NAB, National Association of Broadcasters convention during Mardi Gras. It was a cool time, and I was partying with him, and he sold me on it. In fact, eventually he sold me on. I put Imus Imus is gone now, but I put Imus in the morning in the morning show because I couldn't get anybody. I was doing the morning show for a while, but it's like, I can't do that. So I used to do like a noon show, like from noon to 1, I would do this lunch show, which would be like this show with music. But anyway, yeah, I don't know what the point was about that. I fired everybody. But, yeah, well, that's what happens when you go on tangents and it's flow of consciousness. No, I was talking about that computer. All right. So when I went to that radio station, they weren't even computerized. I mean, they had this thing called a Smartcaster because they were automated. So the satellite feed, it was very antiquated. It was the beginning, the earliest version of satellite radio. We're talking in the late 80s, right? Something like that. I don't know when it was. I was in California. No, it was the 90s. It was in the early 90s. I came back from California. All right. I mean, I've traveled around so many times, and I went to California 3 times. Lived and worked in California on 3 different times. So it's like it's a crazy story, and I can't even put together the timeline. But whenever it was that I took over this station as GM, they had nothing. They had a fax machine and this thing called a Smartcaster that took down the satellite oldies they were playing, and took the various inaudibles to trigger the commercial breaks and stuff. And that was it. There was no computers. No other computers. I think there was a machine. Yeah, there was one like PC that was used for what they call traffic, like scheduling, but it was a primitive machine, and they had such little amount of advertising and stuff that you could almost do what it was doing by hand, right? And it was a satellite radio, so there was no need to for music publishing, BMI, ASCAP, CSAC, and stuff, you have to basically report what you're playing so that royalties can be paid to the artist and stuff like that. So I eventually down the line installed several computers, in the front office. I hired somebody to do traffic. But before any of that, I had the next Mac up, which was a real flat thing. I forget what it was even called. And I had a 300 baud modem, but there was no printer or anything like that in the office. But there was a fax machine. And so I used to fax I was trying to create promotional materials and different things for the sales staff that I was hiring so that they would have things to go out with, package deals and different things like that. Buy these many spots and you get so many free, or here's a weekend special, and the new thing, and designing the logo, all that stuff. And what I would do is I would fax it from my Mac to the fax machine, and then take that, and there was a copy machine in there we had, and then just use whiteout. Like I'd paste up the pieces in some cases, because I would just put out and then paste it on a sheet and then make a copy of it a darker copy because the fax machine was crappy and it was light. And then I would take this whiteout, if you remember what whiteout is, and I would white out like where the different pieces were like on the page, because there would be like these like little shadows and stuff. Anybody who's ever done something like this knows what I'm talking about. If you pasted up a couple of things on a page, you get these marks. And then I'd put that on the copy machine because I'd made that dark originally, and then I would shoot that just a little bit lighter so that the whiteout and those shadows wouldn't show up, and then that would be the flyer. And then I'd run off, so many dozens of those and give them to the sales staff and say, go, take these to your potential clients or new clients. And then eventually I had professionally printed materials, which I designed a really cool thing. I just want to get into this because, these innovations are still things that radio stations today can do or people can do in their own business. I said, we're a rock radio station, and CDs were big then, right? Because CDs had taken over. So I designed a CD case, okay? But it was made out of paper. But it looked exactly like a CD, and it had our logo on it and stuff like that. But when you opened it up, inside I had these what's called die-cut round pieces of cardboard, and printed on them were like our morning drive, like what the show and the price of the spots, our special, our oldies Sunday show, our Westwood One live, concert show that you could sponsor. And these were slid in like CDs in this CD case. And it was these full color CD, and you would take this to, the sales staff would take this to their clients or new client or potential clients. And they had this really cool thing, and it was small and it could fit right on their desk. It wasn't bulky, and it was cool looking. And that was very successful. And I ended up, we were at the bottom of the list, and we ended up going up to number one. And then after doing that, I did that for a couple of years, and then I gave like a 2 months notice, because my work is done here. I've never stayed at a job like once my work was done. And I've told that story before about wherever I worked. I was a turnaround guy. I came in, looked at, assessed the situation, found the flaws, and then turned it around. And once I turned it around, it's like, I'm not going to sit there. I'm not a bureaucrat. I'm not going to sit there. Most people would have sat there. I'd be there right now, right? Sitting there with my feet propped up on the desk. You know what I mean? Just collecting, six figures. Living in some, house, big house or something. Boring, Anyway, so that's the story of the Mac. But that's not the story of this picture. I got one of these things, and you can't really see it. I mean, see where I'm moving everything? Right above the word everything is the headset dangling down. I got one of these headsets that you slide your smartphone into, all right? And you put it on, just like Oculus, but it costs next to nothing, all right? And I was going to get it down, but you could see it there. And that was me yesterday messing with it. But I only paid like $15 for it. It was like a Black Friday thing. And I bought one for a friend of mine who's who's given me some ride, picked me up that time I had the tooth thing and I couldn't get an Uber. Suddenly Uber said, there's no Uber available in your area. But an Uber took me to the appointment. And this guy helped me out. And I thought, I'd get this as a gag. I said, I'd try it, and maybe he'd had some fun messing around with it too, But now I'm wondering if I should even give it to him, because I messed around with it yesterday, and it was like kind of like weird. Like You know, it's funky how you have to do it. There's like on YouTube, you can find these VR, if you're into this stuff, you could find these VR videos, and you have to tap on the VR thing. And what it does is rather than the video come in as just one solid size thing, it splits itself into two. So there's one for each eye. And then you have to have the focus. And it's like the nose thing, the way you adjust, all the adjustments, it's like I kept having to look to the one side. There was one was like a roller coaster, right? But the roller coaster ride down was over here. And it was like, didn't make sense. So you had to have your neck tilted to the side to see it, you know? But then there was this other underwater one, which I was doing. And then a friend of mine called me on the phone yesterday, and we were messing around with that Discord thing. You know, this show's all over the place. Have you messed around with Discord? You know, that's a pretty interesting world too. You know, if you really start looking around, I was telling someone last night, briefly on the phone, who didn't seem that interested, but it was a short phone conversation. And I said to her that same thing I'm going to tell you. This coffee has gone cold. I was watching Supergirl last night also. And she had met her father on this phantom world, wherever they were. See, people wonder why I have the white handkerchief. It's not really the nose. It's the mustache. The coffee gets on the end of it. But her father was trapped with her in this phantom world, and she got out. This, you know, if you haven't seen Supergirl, I mean, this isn't really a spoiler. This is just a little snippet. And it just a comment. And she said, wait till you discover, you know, because he was from the same planet, you know, they were both from Kryptonite, but on Earth, it's our sun that allows them to have these powers, you know, the yellow sun or something, which I didn't even realize, to be honest with you. And I'm like a, you know, comic, you know, guy, you know, it's like kind of I'm into all that stuff. So she says, well, wait till you discover X-ray vision. You'll never have you'll never have cold coffee again. And it's like, that's what I wish I could do, is go like, and heat up this coffee with my X-ray vision. Really sucks. And there's the garbage man out there now. And I forgot my garbage from upstairs. And this week I had a lot. So I hate that. What they're talking about. I hope my bag didn't break or anything. You got to worry this time of year about cats or something like digging in. I double bag my stuff, but I don't have a garbage can per se. I just use black bags, but I double them. They seem to be gone now. But anyway, that's what I was doing yesterday. So I just thought I'd put that up as the thing. And you never get a chance to see this place in daylight. But I was talking about doing live shows on Locals, TonyCaravanLive.locals.com. And you're welcome to go to that site and join it. It's kind of a growing site. There's some interesting people on that site already. There's a lot of people. But the reason why... I mean, I will do some live, you know, if YouTube messes with me, I will move there. But the reason why I like YouTube, and I was telling someone this, is, two things. To finish last night's story, I was trying to say that there are all these things now, like Locals, all right, like this Discord, which is really... You know, you ought to check that thing out. Discord is like, it's everything. Like you could have Wi-Fi, you know, voice over Wi-Fi phone calls, video conferences, share your screen like you can with Duo, Skype, and some of those things. But it's also like this almost social platform. You can have like these servers, and you don't have to buy, when you go to that site, there's things where it says like buy this, or whatever, get extra things. Like if you want to play, like, but people can use that to like play as like a platform where they're playing games or having these, like you could have a bunch of people involved in discussion. So it's almost like you could almost go live on, if you can accumulate a lot of people or go public or build an audience, this Discord thing, in effect, you could like be on there and be having these people all having conversations. It's almost like when chat goes wild on some of these sites, that people are there sometimes more for the chat than they are for what's going on, in the video on YouTube. I don't know if there's some certain places like that, right? Where the chat is a whole different world. And sometimes the chat has nothing to do with whatever the heck the video is, right? And they just get into this, there's these back and forths and all these people that know each other, and all that stuff. But, there are these sites like Discord, right? But Discord to me, and I haven't mastered it and figured out all the intricacies of it because it's intense. But it's very interesting. And I was on it yesterday with a friend, and we did the voice. We were just testing out, kicking the tires. And did the audio. The audio was really clear and crisp, just to make a, over the internet phone call. And he was using a smartphone and I was using my desktop. So it's like, it works on everything. And I like the desktop setup. I'm not a big smartphone person. It's just not me. They're too small, and, but in any event, then we did the video test, and the video looked cool and it wasn't breaking up. You can share files with it. You can just drop and drag files. It has some kind of thing called servers where you can set up these servers, like your own server, and have like stuff on there archived. And you can, so it's real interesting. And I think it's something that's, it's another one of these things that's coming, that there's this stuff happening that a lot of people aren't paying attention to, and the media doesn't know about it, and it's slowly, these things are drawing people away, and they're not, see, the thing about it is, people, when it really boils down to it, people don't give a shit about politics, to put it bluntly, right? The ratings, when they do, polls on popularity polls and stuff like that of politicians and stuff like that, they have the lowest ratings of all. And it's just like the media. When people talk about the media has very low ratings. But everyone, not everyone, because they're the media, they make themselves seem as if they're big and important, right? But in reality, what I'm seeing happening, and this is this idea that I want to, get across today, and then I'll get back into this, and this is part and partial into this other thing, why I webcast on YouTube, but for now, is that the media makes themselves sound like they're important. But it's like they're talking, when you talk nonstop this early in the morning. It's 5:53 a.m. on the 30th of November. This month has lasted pretty long, hasn't it? Right? It's just like going on. And then December, watch that. It's just going to go really quick. Oh, I'm looking there. I'm looking at my title card, and it's so much a part of the room. I'm wondering where my candle is. That's my candle for Hanukkah. I guess I haven't got any room. There's no room for anything else there. All right, so I'm just burning a candle. But anyway, we don't need to see this. So anyway, that's my place. That's what it looks like in the daytime. That's me wearing that ridiculous VR thing. I thought I'd experiment around with that. But I want to get back to this idea. So under the radar, so to speak, and of no consequence, and really there's no reason there's anything going on weird, is that people want to communicate and just do fun things. Like I used to say before to people about gamers, like gamers are like totally like people just ignore the fact that there's this major, chunk of people, who just are into gaming. It's a multi-billion-dollar business, I mean, let's just out of curiosity, new window. I don't know how I would look this up exactly. How many people are, let's see, into gaming in the U.S. or anywhere? Number of U.S. video game players hits 227 million. There are now a total of 226.6 million video game players in the U.S. of all ages, growing from nearly 6% from 214 million in 2020, according to the ESA, whatever the hell that is. That's on the heels of video game audience swelling about 30% last year, up from 164 million. 226 million, they call it video games, but they're hardly video games, right? So anyway, so it's really weird. There was just a message. I was just looking at a chat because I don't see my chat all the time when I'm on a babble. But this was it. Thanks for stopping by. In any event, so what I'm getting at is that there are all these different things. And, so 227 million gamers. So how's politics pop culture? How is, what's with the cult of personality? See, the people in the media are self-important. They're on there. They're like the bully in the schoolyard, right? But if you ignore that bully and stay away from that bully, that person that's like the worst. That's the worst thing. That's why I always say, the idea of like, well, I'm against protests and all that kind of stuff. I think it's all an exercise in futility. The idea is just ignore these people, right? And what's happening now, and I see it happening, is there are all these other worlds out there. And that includes, like in my title card, the VR thing, right? That there are people just doing that. And, Mark Zuckerberg, I've watched all these critics from these Apple people who are talking about, well, Apple's going to come out in late 2022 or 2023, and they're going to leapfrog Microsoft and Facebook's virtual reality, and augmented reality, various goggles and all that kind of stuff, and the metaverse. But the thing is, that they're coming in very late to the game, number one. But number two, maybe so. I mean, it's inevitable that these smartphones, I've been saying this along, within 18 months, the smartphone's going to become passé because it's a pain, and And there's a whole generation of people who are going to start hitting 40, and they're going to discover that, it's like me, these glasses, these are reading glasses. And I don't wear glasses during the daytime. I mean, walking around my house or outside or anything, because I don't need glasses. But I need reading glasses because anybody who gets over, once you hit the age of like 40-ish, so earlier for some, later for others, you can't read small type. It's just your eyes. It's a human. It's part of being human. The biology. And so right now, in other words, if I want to,
Okay.
do that, or if I want, to play.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
In order to see which one to click, I need these glasses. And in order for me to say, to pull up this title card to see this, it's small print. And so I'm wearing, these glasses. And so all these people who have been like messing with this stuff, and then it's all miniaturized. Like I was noticing with a friend of mine yesterday on Discord that, I was seeing all these various things, but he wasn't seeing them because on there, and it's just like, because it's so small, you can't pack everything into the screen. And so the answer is, people aren't going to, we have a mobile society, or we want to be mobile. And I think, in my mind, and I've talked about this several times, is that we're moving to voice and we're moving to more hands-free. And the smartphone doesn't help you with either of those. That's why I like the, the Echo Dot from Amazon. Google has one. And of course, Apple just introduced their mini thing, right? Because they know that that's it. And I tell you, this thing is great. I have two of them. I have one next to my bed, and I have one in my kitchen bar. And I'll say, excuse me, the name of the thing. You can't say it because it's always it's listening, even though it's the next room over. And it'll be like, what? Yeah. But I'll say its name, play Steve Winwood album, Ark of the Diver. And I'll sit there and have my lunch listening to Ark of the Diver. It's great. What's the weather outside? My bedroom is totally dark, right? I'm laying back, just waking up, eyes closed. What time is it? I say, what time is it? It tells me what time it is. Hey, what's the weather like outside? Tells me the weather. I could say, like I told you, I'm not into the network news, but sometimes I like the financial news. And I'll say, hey, play Bloomberg News, and I'll hear like the financial rate, their, whatever. I could ask it anything like that. You could say, where's my stuff? If you ordered something on Amazon, it'll tell you. And if there's like a delivery on your porch, it lights up, and you go, and you could set an alarm, you could voice set an alarm with it. So this is the future. And so once they have like glasses that are like even less, like I say, you've seen people who have glasses that don't have these things, the metal frame around the bottom. So in effect, they're almost invisible. Like you barely know a person's wearing glasses and they're very lightweight, but the sides will probably be thicker. These are true geek glasses. You see this? The duct tape on the other side, right? It's classic. But they're reading glasses and I need them. But anyway, I wanted to finish this thing about why I'm still on YouTube and I'm not, I haven't left unless they kick me off. Is because I'm using this open source program that allows me to have all of these graphics and to pull up, this kind of stuff. So if I want to talk about, La Palma, I can show you that picture, right? If I want to talk about the tooth, oh man, I just hope this thing seems to be healing, man. But if I want to talk about that, or if I want to share a picture from my grow room, I had a couple pieces of those kale I took off yesterday and put in a sandwich, right? But here's the Echo Dot thing I'm talking about, okay? These things are great, and the sound quality is not bad, Mine, the one has like a jack, an audio out jack, like a headphone type jack out, which I could put into my system. I have these Bose speakers in my kitchen because it's like a bar. I've shown you that room before. And, so I can, if I'm partying, so to speak, which I don't do much anymore, but I can have that, heck, it's big sound in the, entire room. And that same sound also feeds into like the bathroom too. So it's like, wherever you go. And I could have it playing on the speaker upstairs, on that other Echo Dot upstairs as well. So that the house is just filled with sound. Or the sound just coming out of the thing itself is fine. But the reason I do this on YouTube, because I can broadcast live and use this. Now, when you go on Locals, for example, TonyCaravanLive.locals.com, if I do a live show there, I'm just basically, all you're going to see is me and through the camera minus all this stuff, right? So, in other words, let's just take care, in other words, you're not going to see anything. I could eliminate everything, but then I'd probably forget how to put everything back on. But you would just see me and none of this text. You see, none of these images, none of these graphics, and I wouldn't be able to pull up the Bitcoin thing, right? So that's why I do this. And I don't know if they're going to set up that capability or not. So that's what YouTube Studio has on some of these other sites. However, it's a major upgrade to Locals that you can do live there, because there's BitChute and other sites where you can put, well, like I say, Rumble bought Locals. So, but I mean, there's been Rumble, there's been BitChute, there are other video, there's even band video, there are other places where you can upload videos to. And I have videos, floating around on some of those other platforms. I've experimented with everything. But this is the only one so far that interfaces with this particular open source program that allows me to do this kind of stuff. And I wanted to do this for a long time. And the only other way you could bypass that would be if you had like an external video mixer or something, so that you were adding this stuff on, but that, the cost of that would be ridiculous. You see. So anyway, that's that. And that's what I was trying to explain, that there are these other platforms and people are doing different things now, and it's not politics as pop culture to these people. They're not into the cult of personality. And the politicians don't realize, and the people who are on the mainstream media, they don't realize how irrelevant they are. And this is how you defeat them. You see? You defeat the bully not by fighting them, not by yelling back and arguing with them, right? You defeat them by ignoring them. And if they're on one side of the schoolyard, you stay on the other side, right? When someone tries to pick a fight, you just walk away from it. You don't have to be involved with that. You see? And then they don't have their victory, you see? They just want to pump their chests up and say, "Hey, look at us. I'm king of the mountain." And they also want to make their, multi-million-dollar salaries, which they all do. Right? I mean, the ratings on stations like CNN, Fox during the daytime, MSNBC, they're lucky if they reach, 1% of the population. You understand that? That's this whole 99 point or 99% thing that people don't realize. It's funny because it comes in. It's like yesterday I was talking about the gases, what our atmosphere is made of. And our atmosphere is made of 99.9% nitrogen, oxygen, and argon. It's actually 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, and 0.9% argon. So that's 99.9% of our atmosphere, the Earth's atmosphere. And you say, well, what about the CO2, man? It's like the climate crisis, Yeah, that's considered a trace gas, along with water vapor, methane, right? They're like, a trace gas. And yet it's important it's the only thing that gives us, green trees and crops, food for you vegans and vegetarians who are like supporting this ridiculous climate crisis thing. And the worst of all is I've actually heard some of these climate crisis people talk about burning wood. So they, in other words, they want to actually get rid of trees. But in another thing, they'll say, oh, they're getting rid of the Amazon forest. And they're really not. The percentage of that vast, ridiculous canopy of trees that follows, around the Amazon River region, that whole area. Because I've done covered expeditions down there. The amount of area that they've deforested, for farmland, and things of that nature, because they have a right, it's their land, is fractional. It's fractional. And yet these same climate crisis people are talking about, well, we'll burn wood. So what are you going to do? Cut down our forest? I've said this many times. The primary life form on this planet are trees and plants. When you look down, you fly a plane at a certain altitude, you can't see people. We don't even show up as ants, right? You can see metropolitan areas and certain skyscrapers and stuff, but what you mainly see are farmland, right, and forests. So the primary life form on this planet is flora, not human beings, even though there's 8 billion of us. It's like insects. I don't know how many insects there are on the planet, but there's an ungodly amount. Let's find out. Today will be like a little statistics show. We'll just get into all this stuff. How many insects are in the world? This is I can't. All right. Here, it's basically 10 quintillion. I just want to show you this because this is insane. Because to say it doesn't really doesn't cut it. That's how many insects there are in the world. 10 quintillion terrestrial animals. The largest biomass of the terrestrial animals. At any time, it's estimated there are 10 quintillion insects alive. Isn't that crazy? Look at that. All right. It's crazy. It's nuts. But see, that's the thing. And so we're like insects when you get up there. But you can see the trees and you can see the farmlands, the growth, the things that, the stuff that gives us oxygen to breathe, and the things that the trace amounts of CO2 feed and green the planet, and which in turn give us oxygen, right? So, all these things that the people are starting to wake up, or maybe they're not even starting to wake up. And that's not like when I would talk about wokeism is jealousy in this, as I get into the end of the show, I want to make sure I cover this for you, is that people aren't waking up. Like wokeism isn't being awake. Wokeism is some kind of cult. It's like a cult of personality. It's a cult of ideology. Its politics is pop culture. But when these people appear on these various cable news stations and network news stations, the reach of those stations is only reaching anywhere from a fraction of 1% to sometimes 10 or more percent of the population, which means anywhere from 90 to 99% of the population are not paying attention to that stuff, or really aren't even aware of them, or are like vaguely aware of them through certain social media. But this 99% thing that I was talking about, I want to finish that, is that so in many cases, 99% of the people aren't watching these cable news channels. 99% plus people didn't die of that thing that's been around for 2 years, and now they're saying is, there's another variant. 99% of the people didn't die. In some instances, 99.99 or 99.98, right? But at least 99%, right? And 99% of the people aren't real, people aren't concerned, aren't paying attention to this stuff. And what these people don't understand, and people in media and politics and all that, and these bureaucrats, they're so like self-absorbed in this wokeism, right? That they don't realize that people are just not even looking at them, right? They're ignoring them, and unless they're being confronted with it. Otherwise, they're doing, they're messing around with virtual reality, which is VR, AR, AI, this whole idea of the metaverse, whether you like it or not, whether you like Mark Zuckerberg or not, whether you like Tim Cook or not, that's cult of personality. The point is whether you like Apple or Meta or Meta/Facebook or, whatever, the idea is that they, and Microsoft, because Microsoft is developing a very expensive, headset, some headgear. But whether or not you like any of these people or these companies doesn't really matter. It's about the technology. It's the same with Elon Musk and Tesla. He's got a new phone coming out, and he's got internet now that's going to be tied into his phone. So he's going to be going up against the telecoms. Think about that. And so most people are into other things. I once did a show where I broke down all of the different interests. In fact, in one of my books, I don't believe it's in these books, but one of my earlier books, I broke down all of the interests that people have besides politics, and this cult of personality and this wokeism, right? That people have these, their self-importance. The fact is, wokeism is jealousy, is what I'm trying to say, right? Wokeism is people, what we used to call jealousy. These people, it's like, and it has nothing to do, I don't want to get into a thing where it has to do with the physicalness of an individual, like a person, being attractive, say. But that's part of it, right? You see these people that are, they have nothing else, or they have no self-respect. Like, when I grew up, speaking of high school, and I don't want to drag this on too much longer, so I'm going to talk a little bit fast here. But, when I was in high school, I was friends, with a lot of, if you remember, the B-52s had a song called The Deadbeat Club. Right? We're the Deadbeat Club or whatever. And it's the idea is I had a lot of friends. I was friends with people that weren't necessarily popular. But in high school, I was, a good looking guy, and I played, freshman year, I played football. I think I was on student government for a little while. I was in a band for a little bit. I was like I could have been part of the clique, the in crowd. But I wasn't, and I didn't. I ended up quitting football because I rather play, mess around and play in a band. I don't think I think I ended my student council thing. I ended up having, being the editor of the underground newspaper type of thing, which ultimately led me to the principal thinking that I was like a troubled guy because I was pushing this underground newspaper and was trying to redirect my creative efforts. And he was instrumental in getting me a radio show Sunday nights while I was still in my senior year in high school on the local radio station. And, that in turn was something that, and I thank that guy. And it was steered me into, a career where I, radio and broadcasting and stuff, which on and off throughout my life, though I haven't been a broadcaster my entire life. I've gone into all these different things, from publishing to, talent management, producing and all that other kind of stuff. But the idea was I could, and I had a radio show my senior year. So I could have been, Mr. Cool. But instead, I just hung out with regular people. And I didn't care if they were, overweight, if they had acne on their face, if, some, the people in the in crowd, the clique or something would make fun of them. I wouldn't be afraid to sit with them at the lunch table or talk to them or be friends with them. You see? And that's the way it was. Right? And, and it should be that way. It's the same. It's the whole idea of diversity and, like the way they try to divide people through race and stuff like that. In other words, it's not a matter of being colorblind. It's a matter of not even like thinking about anything like that. Right? But I find that this wokism people are somehow self-conscious or don't realize that people really don't care if they're fat, right? If they, if they aren't, some sort of, look like a Greek, statue of Venus or something like that. And so you find these people and they almost even distort themselves beyond, in such a way. And they're out there protesting, screaming, and they've got this wokeism. And it's as if they're jealous of these like talking heads on TV or these other people who just want to live regular lives, or these, Southern belles and housewives that just really, they're not bigots. They just want to live their life. And they decided to be a mom instead of being a, some kind of independent woman. It's their own decision to make. That has nothing to do with it. And so to me, that whole wokeism thing is like some kind of jealousy. That's what we used to call it, jealousy. And it's like, forget it. Because most people out there, and this is the thing, and I've talked about this on many occasions. I even talked about it yesterday, even in my neighborhood. I live in an very integrated neighborhood where I am a kind of a minority, and it is not the way it here is portrayed on TV. And I've lived in other towns because I've lived all over this country. And I've traveled across both oceans. And, while there is bigotry and there is, there clearly are certain people who are racist and this, that, the other, they are a super minority. You have to go, it's like the media, they used to have investigative reporters, which instead of investigating into like the corruption of politicians, right? Because politicians are so corrupt, it's unbelievable. Or the corruption in the FBI or the corruption in the CIA, right? They're going out there investigating and saying, let's see if we could find somebody who's a bigot somewhere, right? So then we could like, take that story and run with it for a year and like try to create some kind of divide between the, people based on color or religion or their weight or whether or not their health, status or something. But people out here, like the Who song I quoted the other day, out here in the fields, out here in the real world, We don't give a shit about that stuff, right? People are gaming. They don't know who they're people are gaming, with people in other parts of the world, you don't know. Nobody knows what that person is they're even playing with. All right? Or people are just, in social media. People just want to communicate. And that's what things like this Discord and some of these other things I think are about, and like locals.com, TonyCaravanLive.locals.com. I list my videos there. And like I say, if I ever get kicked off here, I do it. Unfortunately, you wouldn't see, the girl with the Then What on or Howard Beale or my ROCKFLUX logo, unless I could figure out some other kind of way of integrating this into that. And if I could, believe me, I would do it, because the idea of me getting 3 views here, despite the fact that I list this link on a half a dozen other sites, is ridiculous, because this is a fairly decent show, and that's not some egotistical thing. So anyway, took a long time to get to that point, but yeah, these people are just jealous. And you know what? Ignore them. They don't represent, they're just bullies. They're bullying people. And the idea is you need to just be independent and go elsewhere. And do other things like 99% of the people are, or at least 90% of the people in most cases. They're really not. People go along with the thing. Look, when I go to the grocery store, I put on my mask. I don't stand there and protest. Though I do notice there are some people down there where it says right on the door, face covering required. And I notice there are more and more people in there who just don't have a face mask on. So they're just saying, screw it. But I'll put it on. I'll play their game. You see what I mean? It's like the same with this. I'll abide by their terms of service. I do. I don't care. I'll play by the rules. I said that the other day. It's like a board game or something. What are the rules of the game? Or a video game. When you're in there, you're like, okay, how do you play this game? What's the rules? How's it work? Right? And so that's what terms of service are. They're like putting, the parameters. You can do this, don't do that. If you do this, you get kicked out. If you do this, you win a point. If they want to kick you off because they don't like your ideology, or they don't like me like spelling out the truth, that's their problem, not mine. And I'll go elsewhere and I'll get more views. I've put a few videos on BitChute that have in one day have gotten 100, like close to 100 views. In one day, all right? But they weren't live, and I had to produce them. And the idea is that it takes, if it's a 2-hour video like this one is, we just passed 2 hours. I'm going to end it soon. If it's a 2-hour video like this, it takes 2 hours to record my spiel, right? And then I have to, if I'm going to add slides and show things like this, then they have to be added to it after the fact, right? So that takes time. And, scrolling through 2 hours worth and finding the exact spot, right? That could take, a half hour, 20 minutes, a half hour, right? And then I have to take that and turn it into an MP4 file if I were going to upload it to YouTube, or even to like BitChute or Rumble or some of these places. So I have to export it. And that export process, it has to process it because it's not just straight video. It has, slides and stuff. And like I said, I like to show you proof, how many insects are there? What is, we have a question. Let's go to find the facts. All right. So that people can't argue it and say, hey, he's full of, And so then it might take an hour sometimes to process, or even if it took a half hour. So now you're at 3 hours. Now you have to upload that huge 2-hour file, right, to YouTube, BitChute, or wherever. And that could take an hour or two sometimes. And so I'm tied up. My computer's completely tied up while I'm doing that. I don't want to use bandwidth, right? I want optimum to get that thing cleared out. So you're talking like 5 hours, Sometimes it would be like 6 hours that my computer was either tied up. Half of that time I'm actually, involved in doing the show or editing the show, and so, then my whole life, and I'm not monetized, and nobody's buying my shirts, even though the stuff's 15% off, by the way, today and tomorrow. 15% off mugs, T-shirts, and hoodies. Go to, ROCKFLUX.com, and there's links to everything there. Do a guy a favor, buy something. And same with my stuff on Amazon. Then what? Get the print version, because there's reasons you would prefer it in print than digital form. And there's a link to Great Solar stuff. You can go direct to Great Solar stuff, but links to all this stuff are on rockflux.com. And there's my local site, TonyCaravanLive.locals.com. So